Hi all, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another review. This is very interesting considering that 2021 has been sort of, kind of, not so review based for my channel. And so for any of y'all who followed me or came along during the ride where I was doing like reviews all the time, this might seem a little bit weird, but for all of y'all who have been keeping up with my whatevers in my everyday life, we just don't got the kind of money. I mean, we never did, but because I am now being a better consumer, I just do not have the cash to be flinging willy-nilly at every single release that's happening and every single release that I am at least slightly interested in reviewing. It's gotta be something pretty stinking good for me to actually put my money on it, which is kind of funny considering this particular review, because the only reason I have this palette is because I had a $50 gift card from Christmas, and Sephora was doing its 20% off sale because I'm still Rouge. We ain't gonna be Rouge 2022. But kind of in the two palettes that I was thinking of getting, we had the Kaleidos Club Nebula and the Melt Cosmetics Mary Jane. I had made the decision that I was going to get the Kaleidos one and not the Melt Cosmetics one. Not because it wasn't pretty, not because it wasn't something that I, didn't want to review, but because comparing the two, I really wanted to get my hands on that Club Nebula one. I have been lusting for that ever since it was teased, which I was able to acquire, but I had made the decision to buy that one instead of this one, and we're here now because I didn't have to pay for it. And as I'm sure all you all know, that is the Melt Cosmetics Mary Jane palette. We've got another weed themed palette. I love this, like, can you see it? Like, it's got in the Mary Jane here, it's all raised and everything, and it's got like little freaking sequins in it that are moving all around and everything. That I like. And you open this bad boy up and it is everything that cool tone dreams are made of. I've typically never really been a cool tone person until recently. And ever since then, I have been living my best cool toned life, and I'm actually kind of obsessed with cool tone palettes right now. So this came at an absolutely perfect time. It is obviously what I'm wearing on my fantastically hazed out peepers today. And what I did was fairly simple. I just started off with Rubia right here, then went into Gaspar right here, and then Sinsemilla. I used this color all out in that deep whatever on my lower lash line. Oh, sorry, I started with Mari on my eyes. I used Rubia on the lower lash line. And then this is where it gets a little iffy. I attempted to use Mary Jane right here, which is this beautiful kind of greeny, cool tony gold silver situation. That didn't work out so well, so I tried using Kali right here. That didn't work out so well either, so I ended up using a shimmer from my Jeffree Star cremated palette. So obviously, if you couldn't tell, we do have some slight issues with this palette, especially considering the fact that this palette is $58. I always forget how expensive Melt palettes are until I have to buy one, and I'm like, whoo! You charging these high prices, especially they've been expensive from the beginning because their stacks were like, the $58. I'm like, I'm not paying $58 for this stack of, 4 or 5 eyeshadows. I'm much more inclined to spend that on a palette, but because it's $58, because it's a high-end brand, and because it's a brand whose formulas I'm familiar with, I expect a certain level of quality, of consistency. And that's kind of where we reach the discrepancy with this palette. So let's just swatch this thing, and then we can go on into my thoughts about it. Brought y'all in a little bit closer so you can see my sucky swatches in real time. That's not real time because it's recorded. So you can see my sucky swatches up close and personal. So we're gonna start off with just top to bottom right here. So we have Mary Jane, which in the pan, oh my goodness, even what? Oh, that is sad. This has to be one of the most disappointing shades in the whole palette. I mean, Do you see that? The point of this is the fact that you don't see it. I mean, I feel that this is going to be one of the most conducive to hard pan shadows I've ever owned. And like, it is so thick. And not just thick. It is chunky. And not like, oh, I can kind of pat it in and kind of smooth. No, like chunky, I'm going to press it onto my lid and it's just going to poof right into the atmosphere, all over my face, all over my lashes, all over everything. I was so excited to use that shiz all up on here because it is my shiz, but like even digging into it, it just isn't like I was digging and I was getting as much schmutz as I could on my brush and it just did nothing. The only thing it did was fall right off my lid and give me like maybe 4 or 5 little shimmy shiny, slightly reflective green flakes on my lids. But for $58, that shade has given me all kinds of awful flashbacks to the Millennial Pinks and that beautiful, beautiful silver shade where it just looked gorgeous and you nothing. I haven't tried a primer. I have a tacky primer and glitter glue because you guys have no idea. Well, you guys do have an idea of how much I despise that excuse where you pay $58 for a freaking palette and you go to use the shimmer and it doesn't work and someone in the comments says, well, you have to use a tacky primer and glitter glue in your finger. Y'all, I am not here to use a tacky primer, a glitter glue, or my finger. It should just work, you know? There shouldn't have to be, when we are charging $58 for palettes, the shimmers better not need any help. They better just be able to do what they're supposed to, and this one doesn't. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the part I loved, which are the mattes. This is Gaspar, and on the mattes, they've got this really cute little like it's a you know, it's a pot flower, but it's made out of like crystals and everything. I love that. Very on trend with who I am and what I like to represent. And then we have Sweet Lucy, which again is like I'm getting like brown pigment off of it, but the shimmer is just not coming along. And then Bomba right here, second verse, same as the first. Let's see if I can get these all up here. I'm pressing so hard to get these things to look any kind of something. I'm sorry, you are a shimmer. Shimmers are supposed to be relatively easy to formulate. All you need to be is smooth and shimmy shiny. That's all I need. I don't want a heck ton of this stupid back pigment that causes the shimmer to absolutely disappear into nothingness. I mean, you look in the pan and you're like, ooh boy, F me up. And then you get it on your face and on your lids and it's like, I am nothing. I am gone. I am the dissipated vapors of many bong shots gone. Okay, let's continue with this. Then we've got the Sinsamilla, which is what I use on my outer V. Beautiful, smooth, pigmented, blended like a dream. Absolutely love it. Then we have Santa Maria right here, which is probably one of the more viable shimmers out of the entire palette. And then we have Rubia, which beautiful, pigmented, blends like a dream, absolutely stunning. Here we have them right here, smooth, pigmented, beautiful. This is one of the better shimmers in the palette. And then this one, I mean, you can just see the difference between these 3 shades being swatched in comparison to these 3 but 4 shades being, I mean, can you see the difference? It really is moments like these that make me wonder, is it just me? Do I have a dud? Do I not have the correct type of brushes to use in order for me to manipulate these shadows accordingly so they work on my face? I mean, I used to be able to buy things with so much confidence, and anymore I'm just like, do I even want to deal with the stress of buying anything? Because I'm like, I buy it, I spend my money on it, and I want it to be good, and then it gets here, and it's kind of, I'm like, that could have been money that could have gone to something, I don't know, better. Then the last 3, we have got Bow right here, which is, again, one of the better superior shimmers. These 2 seem to be the same formula. Then we've got Mari here, which is the last matte. Second verse, same as the first, love it. And then Kali, which is like the same awful, awful formulation as Mary Jane, Sweet Lucy, and Bomba. I mean, this is so frustrating. See? Nice, pretty, shimmy shiny. We got a matte. It actually goes on a lot nicer than that. And then we have absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm not entirely sure if y'all can comprehend my upsetness at this. Like, this is nowhere near as upsetting as the Millennial Pinks palette, because that one was just, there was basically nothing good out of it. And if there was one thing good out of it, it was probably just one shadow. And so when you have this and you're like, okay, all right, the quality is most definitely a gigantic hit and miss, which is frustrating because the stuff that's good quality is really good. And then the stuff that sucks is just absolutely awful. But the color story is beyond beautiful. I mean, do you see that? Just the beautiful, cool toned, grungy vibes. And it just, I mean, for these two shimmers alone, that is a disgusting letdown from a brand who is typically consistent, and for someone it's $58. If I had bought this, I probably would have ended up returning it. Like, if I hadn't used a gift card and had that 20% off, and I actually went in, was like, all right, I'm gonna spend $58 of my whatever money and buy this, would have been so blinking upset. Because the sad thing about this, let me get you all back a little bit. The truly sad thing about this is that the mattes are absolutely fantastic. Y'all probably know, girl, why did you buy this? It has a heavy favored shimmer, a lot more shimmers than mattes, and y'all know that is typically not my type of palette layout. If this had been an all matte palette and all the mattes had been formulated the way these four were, I would be singing this shiz's praises. But because you get four beautifully formulated mattes in here, and then you have accompanied them with some pretty piss poor shimmers, especially two of what I would consider to be the standout shimmers, this Mary Jane one. I mean, it's the shimmer named after, you know, you got the Mary Jane palette, and here's the Mary Jane shadow, and the Mary Jane shadow is just absolute crap. Like, I don't want to hear all of this. I really do hate it. Y'all know this, but I absolutely hate it when every time I use a shimmer, or I complain about a shimmer, or I whine about it not staying on my lid, I got someone down in the comments telling me how dumb I am for not knowing that I need to use a tacky primer or a glitter glue. I mean, can we just formulate eyeshadow palettes with having that caveat that just because if a shimmer is difficult to use, you need to use a glitter glue? Maybe we should just focus on formulating good shimmer eyeshadows that don't turn to hard pan the first to second time you swatch them and then become absolutely nothing and worthless. I mean, because when I was going at this, instead of swiping down like that, typically what I do is I'll push a little bit like this, get a little bit of kick up in the pan, then pick it up. I'm sitting here with this thing and I'm like, here's all this glitter, here's all this shimmer, and then I go to pick it up on my brush and pff, absolutely nothing. And that is just so, and you're sitting there and you're like, well, I guess I'm just cursed with dry eyelids. But I've got so many other shimmers, not just for melt. I am just really tired. Let's have a moment. I am just so stinking tired of brands and companies who can't just make simple shimmers. There, for some reason recently, the beauty community is opposed to just putting normal shimmers in a palette. We've got to formulate triple, quadruple, you know, however many quadruple chromes. We've got to have ones that have little, you know, here's the little mixed marbleized shimmers. They're always so caught up with this whole, well, we need to make these new, funky, fascinating freaking shimmers. They're always trying something new. They're always trying to reformulate and trying to find something fancy when all they should have done is have just gone with the Gemini and the Rust palette, the 420. Go with that shimmer formula and put it into this. I'm sick and tired of them being all like, Melt, personally, but also communities on a whole. I mean, companies on a whole. But Melt is really bad with, they'll be like, ooh, look, here's this this seductive weed-based palette that has to do with all the different things within the strain and all the different little layers and everything. And they're like, we need to create a shimmer that adequately represents all those little different layers and you know, shatter, and it's bleh. I'm so just tired of palettes, of companies wanting to make these palettes and wanting to do these unnecessary fancy things too, because they think they're all kinds of bougie and fashion and otherworldly because they're making a Mary Jane palette. I mean, can you just put a normal shimmer that I don't need textures? I don't want a shimmer that is more, you know, base color pigment based. I just want a shimmer. I just want a shimmer. I don't want it to be chunky. I don't want it to be nasty. I don't need it to need a glitter glue or a tacky primer. I want to be able to take my brush, the brush that I use with 99.99999% of my shimmers, including ones from Melt, do my little thing, and then put it on my eyelid and have it be all kinds of nicey nice. That is all I am asking for. And I don't think it's something that's too whatever, you know, too whatever to ask for. I mean, it would... How many millions do these companies make? You know, you would think that with that sort of capital, they would be able to come to the conclusion, maybe we should just formulate a shimmer like a normal shimmer instead of trying to do stupid shiz, like making it represent a certain element of the strain that we're basing our palette on. I just want a shimmer that applies to my lid with a brush. Is that really, really so much to ask for? Unless one of you all or all of you magically know how to make the stupid, dumb Melt Cosmetics shimmers to work, I wouldn't buy this thing. The mattes are beautiful. They're a perfect example of the matte formula I love by Melt. You know, it's pigmented. It was very blendable. It worked really well. I didn't have a significant amount of fallout with the mattes. Now don't touch these shimmers with nothing because you're going to have fallout every day for the rest of your life. I'm not even looking forward to cleaning the brushes that I use to try to get these shimmers to work because I'm going to have glitter schwitz all on me for like 3 days now. I just get so frustrated when you're buying from these high-end brands that just, if any of y'all have this and like your shimmers are amazing, the absolute bomb diggity shiznit, I mean, look, just let me, look, right? Swatching. And I understand oil on the finger. Someone's going to comment down below and be like, well, when you swatch it lots of times with your finger, it gets hard to him because of the oil. To appease any butthurt naysayers, I will use my finger and a brush. So, when you charge $58 for a palette, and this is how your shimmer works. So here, this is the Mary Jane. La 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 la. La la la. La 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 la. I mean, come on. That is not okay. All right. Brush. This is how I usually do my whatevers, right? I take it and I kind of push it forward a little bit and I'm like, oh, here's some crumble. Here's some shimmy shiny. All right. Do it with the brush. It sucks. And then in the same case with the color, and there's schmitz, and there's schfoots, and all kinds of whatever's all up in here, glitter chunks flying everywhere. We got Kali right here. You know, it feels so nice, but it gives absolutely nothing with my brush. This is the Rafer 02 brush. Love these brushes. This is one that I use for a lot of my shimmers. So we're just gonna look at all that lovely chunkiness coming up. Look at all that flake. I'm like, all right, I got a lot of flake. And it's just, I don't want to hear, oh, it's a topper shade, because there's so much chunk. It's not even going to look as good as a topper shade because you've just got all this chunky, unattractive texture on your eyelid. Like, you're like, yeah, that looks kind of pretty, but looking at it, it's like, it's just awful. Words currently cannot express my frustration and my disappointment with this palette. I mean, I ended up not paying for it. I'm not near enough of Sephora to do any kind of, I mean, the nearest Sephora here is in Nashville, which is like an hour and a half away. I love the mattes. I think the mattes are going to play really well with some other melt palettes that I have, and that's great. But when you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shades in this thing, and 6 of them are kind of pissy, lame, terribly formulated shimmers. I mean, these two just kill it for me. Just murder it for me. Who swatched that and said, this is ready to go to market? I mean, and I always go back to the whole, maybe I just suck at makeup. Maybe I just cannot comprehend the intricacies that are needed to make these Melt Cosmetics shimmers work. Maybe I'm just not good enough. Mattes are beautiful. I love the colors. I love the tones, but I hate a palette I hate a high-end palette. This is the same issue I had, but reverse, with the Natasha Denona Trio Chrome. 3 shimmers they included were the bomb diggity shiznit, and the mattes were like, as it was okay. And in this case, the shimmers, I mean the mattes, are the bomb diggity shiznit. You've got 2 shimmers that are okay, and then you got 4 shimmers that are absolutely the banes of my existence. Like, I did not expect to go in on this palette and have it be as inconsistent as it is, and that's what makes me angry. I mean, like I said, if any of y'all have this palette and it is the most beautifully formulated, easy to use palette, let me know down below. Maybe I do just suck. But I am like so mad at this. I haven't been this mad at a palette since like Colored Rain Juicy Boost, where I'm like, I've tried this. I know these people. I know this type of thing. What is this trash? The mattes are beautiful. I keep saying it. Just like, I may have to just depot the mattes and be all like, I mean, I feel like the highest point of this palette and why they're charging $58 for it is the fancy packaging. But you all know I am not someone who likes fancy packaging with poorly formulated makeup in it. Long story short, the shimmers are awful. There are 2 shimmers that are kind of okay. The top and bottom shimmer, I think, are absolutely useless. As shimmers, as top coaters, they're just formulated really poorly. And you've got the Santa Maria and the Bow. Those ones are okay. These ones are like shimmers with a crap ton of back pigment, so it's not really a shimmer. Maybe I need to try it as a like, I don't know, a matte or a lower lash line to make me all kinds of smoky and hazy. But as of right now, I cannot advocate and say, yeah, go out and spend. It's the same thing with the Natasha Denona palette. I cannot, because of the inconsistency and the fact that more than half of the palette I think is not so good. I cannot tell any of you to, all right, go ahead and spend $58. Don't even do the gift, because like, you know, I did the gift card and the 20% off and I'm still mad at it. I'm just so mad if this had been like, like I said, I used my real money. I just, don't buy it. I cannot say, if you have it and you love it, use it, that's fantastic. But for me, it's just too inconsistent, too frustrating to work with for me to say, yes, go out and buy, spend $58 on the Melt Cosmetics Mary Jane palette. Just go out and buy you some Mary Jane. All right, all y'all, there was that review. I'm pretty bummed. I'm pretty like upset about the turnout of this palette. I got it. It arrived in the mail. It looked absolutely stunning. I love the mattes, but those shimmers, man, those shimmers, just not anything I can advocate for. Would love to hear what you guys have to say about this palette. Obviously, this is all sorts and kinds of subjective. This is just my experience. I hate saying this, but maybe I suck at makeup. Maybe I got a bad palette. Maybe I just don't know how to use those shimmers. But within the skills and the talent set that I have and the way I like my makeup, I'm not happy with it, and I don't think it's worth $58. Just really, really disappointed. But thank you guys so much for watching. I love you, and as always, keep it real. Mwah!